Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, the Health Optimizer and Addiction Eliminator. I am delighted that I have got a guest with me today. We're going to be talking about a topic that I'm guessing the majority of you listening and watching have never heard of. Audrey and I met at a networking event and she was sharing on sophrology. And so I'm going to invite Audrey to share with you just what sophrology actually is and how she got to be a sophrologist. So Audrey, over to you. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Vicky. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. So sophrology, it's a big mouthful, isn't it? But so basically what it means literally is the study of consciousness in harmony. And where this word comes from, it was a neuropsychiatrist back in the 60s working in Spain and fascinated by consciousness, trying to find a more humane way to treat his patients, because back in the 60s in psychiatric hospitals, the treatments were quite intrusive. Brutal is actually a good word, because it was, insulin-induced comas, electric shocks. And he had an impact of consciousness, but he was trying to find other ways as well to work with his patients. And in his own theory, there was this spectrum of one end, there were people in state of schizophrenia, which means literally split consciousness, schizophren.
Right. Yeah.
And so he came up with this word on the other end, sophrenia, for an integrated or harmonious consciousness.
Nice.
And that's where he created this word sophrology, and he started developing the method. So what he did initially was looking at Western relaxation techniques that were available around him, and he started working with things like progressive muscle relaxations, Schultz autogenic training, did some breath work, but he also traveled to the East and he studied with yogis in India and in Tibet, studied Buddhist meditation, Japanese Zen, and he started bringing back those elements in the method. So sophrology in a nutshell, and it's always difficult to explain in just a few words.
Yeah.
But it is this very comprehensive method inspired by all these modalities. It's secular, and it includes gentle body movements, breath works, visualizations, element of concentration, relaxation, meditation. And the aim is really to help you bring mind and body back into balance so that you are capable of, really be the actor of your life. So it's a great way to regulate mind and body, to be more present, more balanced. But it also, through the practice, give you this sense of empowerment and agency, which is also perhaps what's unique is how accessible and practical it is to use. Because if you think back in the 60s as well, perhaps yoga wasn't as popular and people wouldn't sit in weird positions or wouldn't take the time to spend an hour sitting on a cushion to meditate. No. And actually, through his method, all the techniques that we use in sophrology, they are so accessible and so practical. Like I've been working with people, you can adapt. You could do it if you are bedridden in the bed. Usually it's done standing or sitting, but everything is adaptable. And then you can use it anywhere, in public transport, in the hospital, at work, at home. It's very, very practical.
And that's what drew me to it, because I must admit, when I saw what the topic was that you were talking about, I did have to do a quick Google search because I'd not heard that term before. But the way that you've described it obviously makes it seem so much more comprehensive, because it's many modalities brought together. And in the 60s, I'm guessing that he was obviously way ahead of his time in that he was looking elsewhere to see what was working in different countries and taking elements of different things rather than it having to be one set way. And I love what you've described is that you don't need any special equipment and you can do it anywhere, even if you are bedridden. So that obviously leads us nicely onto the question well, how did you find it, and what got you then to be able to teach it? Because you do teach it now, don't you?
I do. That's an interesting question. So now I think all the listeners would have heard I come from France.
Yes.
And in France, sophrology is extremely popular. You find it everywhere, in hospital, in school, in business, even in sports, for preparing competition and athletes. And my own journey with sophrology is that it was recommended to me by a French neurologist at the time I started treatment for MS. So just to give a bit of context as well on the background, I'm a scientist by training. So when the French neurologist told me you should do some sophrology, I kind of knew what he was talking about because being French, again, it's so popular. It's probably as popular as mindfulness is in the UK. But we're talking back in 2007 at that time, but still I knew about sophrology generally, broadly.
Right.
But being a scientist, I was, what I really wanted was conventional medicine, and I was a bit skeptical about this type of things. I was like, mind body practices, feels a bit woo-hoo, not too sure. But then
But this is amazing, though, that you actually had a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, which generally you're kind of told that you're kind of stuck with that, and you're going to have to learn to live with it. Here in the UK, and to have a neurologist actually recommending something that is not conventional to you, that wasn't medication based or anything else, is quite unusual. And I think that that's quite a powerful message, that he knew what it was, but also the power of it for that particular issue.
I'd just like to clarify something, Vicky. We talked normal medication, and he put me on normal medication.
Right.
But back then, there were only two options available, and the two options were only reducing the number of relapses by 30% on average.
Right.
So, and you could see I was really nervous about taking the treatment because I was somebody who was so anxious all the time, and I was always into the worst case scenario. And in that time, in that instance, it meant that I was just consumed day and night by how bad is MS going to get? When is the next relapse going to be? And it felt so unbearable in some ways, the fact that I felt out of control, like nobody could tell me what was going to happen, how it was going to evolve, that there were likelihoods that I would escape the treatment at some point and it become progressive, degenerative, and etc. So there was a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of research now on MS, and there are many more treatments available. So it wasn't instead of the conventional treatment. I certainly had a conventional treatment, but it was recommended sophrology to support the more emotional, psychological aspects, because it could see I was very anxious. And let's face it, what I've discovered is that for me, is in particular with the relapses with MS, anxiety, stress was always linked to relapses. And learning to manage my stress levels and regulate my internal state has been key in me managing MS and being where I am today. So you asked me why I am now a sophrologist. It's really because of my own journey. Is that what I loved was, first, after the first session, I could go home and I could practice for myself.
Right.
So that already started to feel empowering. I started the treatment at the same time I started sophrology, and I found it was helping me, to cope with the anxiety I had behind the treatment. And very quickly, I was becoming autonomous. I came back to the UK to carry on with my PhD. So I was doing a PhD in biological sciences at the University of Leeds. And within a few weeks of practice, I could do it on my own. Here was something I could do that was making me feel well. And then very subtly, some other changes started to come into place from simply, I think, the regular practice. I didn't have the feeling I was doing anything different. But I started to transform as a person. So me, who was always anxious, who was always worrying about, how bad it was going to get, I started to feel well in myself, and I started to feel confident I could take whatever life would throw at me. And there is a day when I left my flat and I was just like, you know what? I'm happy to be alive in a way that I hadn't experienced in the past.
So may
So,
I ask, Audrey, how many months are we talking from you starting that after that very first session to you having that experience?
to that experience, we're talking probably about 3 months.
So
No
very,
more.
very quickly. Yeah, amazing.
That feeling of, I think that's everything that I experienced. First, I felt back in control. And then because there was this thing I could do again for myself that was helping me feeling better. And it started with, I would say, it was sophrology as a toolkit, about regulating my emotions, my stress. But as I kept practicing, other things happen. And that's what I call tapping into the mind-body connection, because when you start releasing the tensions in the body and you start reconnecting with the body in a positive way, and then your mind stops the catastrophization and your thoughts, I started to build a kind of what I would call long-lasting positive mindset. And then I felt emotionally so much better. I was so much happier. And then from that, naturally, the way you think, the way you behave start changing, because your perception or relationship with yourself, with the world around you, completely transforms.
So we're talking like a positive domino effect, aren't we? As opposed to a negative one. It's just like if you start to do this, then this feels better, and then you can do that, and then you get more confident, and the more confident you are, the more you're going to feel different. And so the joy of it is that you started practicing on a regular basis. You could do it yourself, you could do it at home, and just 3 months is just quite incredible. So tell us more about what you did then.
Well, so then I completed my PhD successfully. I went to do a postdoc at the University of East Anglia. Interestingly, during the postdoc, because there was a move and everything. I mean, basically, I threw my routine away,
Right.
and that's been very interesting. So I noticed there was a part of me that was, I think, still skeptical. So I was feeling so well, and there was a part of me thinking, well, surely it cannot be sophrology that is responsible for me feeling so well. I've got things under control, everything is fine. And I started practicing less and less until I stopped altogether. I noticed that in the mind, I started to have some negative thinking pattern coming back, but I didn't catch myself up. And then I experienced side effects from the treatment I had been taking perfectly fine for 3 years. That escalated, and I resumed. At some point, it was so bad, I decided to resume my sophrology routine because I didn't know what to do, and the side effects receded.
Wow.
And then I went again. I started practicing again regularly, and then I stopped, and other relapse came up, and I started to realize this how important it was to me to have this practice in my life. And that's when I decided to shift and to leave academia behind and to become a sophrology practitioner. So I trained at the Sophrology Academy, which is a one school in the UK, teaching people to become
Oh, right. So
sophrologists.
you actually did do your training here in the UK. You didn't have to go back to France to do it.
No. So in France, we have, there are hundreds of schools, but we have one school in the UK. I say we have because I'm now education director of this school. But yeah, there is one school in the UK issued to become a sophrologist, and I trained there. And then I started practicing with people more, I would say, as a hobby. To start with, I volunteered for 3 years at the local Macmillan Cancer Support
Amazing.
group that was there. I delivered some sessions for university staff, students, things like this. And I started as well when I was delivering interventions, for stress, for sleep, for confidence. Every time there would be somebody saying, very often at the end of the session and telling me, I've got fibromyalgia, can it help? I've got chronic fatigue, can it help? I've got this condition, can it help?
Right.
And so that's when I decided to come out with my story, because at the time I wasn't really sharing that I had MS. And that's
okay. So you were mainly utilizing it to help people in sort of end of care situations or with stress and anxiety mainly.
I was mainly doing stress and anxiety, and then because people kept coming to me, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to share my story. And so I started to share my story, and yeah, so I still work with people who are stressed, anxious. I'm very into the preventive side and preventative side. So I think sophrology is a great method, again, to regulate your mind, body, and to avoid you going downhill.
Right.
But I love to help people who have also gone that downhill route. And often the people who come to me, because sophrology is so unknown in the UK, they would have tried many things.
Right.
And what they tell me is that sophrology was the one thing they could stick with. Again, we go back to the accessibility and practicality of the method. If people are looking for a way to create a sustainable practice, something they'll be able to incorporate in their day-to-day life, sophrology, again, is very, very accessible for that. And so, because the key is in the practice, we can discuss it as long as we want, and I can tell you all the theory behind it. But at the end of the day, what matters is, are you going to put it in place in your day-to-day life? And if it's an hour of meditation, it's just going to be too hard. Right. But here we're talking like little exercises you can use in your day, ad hoc, and perhaps a 10 to 15 minute practice, on a regular basis. That's all.
So this is an important thing. As you say, we're living in a world now where people seem to just cram so much in to a day, and asking them to do something that's going to take a serious chunk of time, like an hour, they're automatically going to go, I can't do that, I can't fit it in. But this is the beauty of it. You're talking about, for some of the exercises, just 3 or 4 minutes. It's nothing that you need to kind of go, oh my goodness, I need to block out half a day to learn how to do it. It's literally, you can implement it as and when you feel that you need it. And that's, I think, the empowering part of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. How you can use those exercises in your day-to-day. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a regular routine. So I would say those 10 minutes a day, 10 to 15 minutes can be really beneficial, but then also using the exercises as you need to through the day, that can be so empowering and so effective as well.
And as you say, 10 minutes is something that we can all do, whether it's 10 minutes of reading or 10 minutes just going for a walk. Allowing yourself to just go, oh, it's just 10 minutes, I can fit that in, just sounds and feels, when you hear yourself saying it, so much more accessible and doable, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I wasn't the type to sit on a cushion for an hour. Thankfully, that wasn't what was required.
No. And this is the joy. Now, you mentioned that it's actually a specific program. So it's not just willy-nilly, you do this and then you do a bit of that. There is a method to it, isn't there? And that's the bit that you teach people to do for themselves. And how long does it take usually for somebody to be able to pick up the stuff that they can then go away and practice? Because you said even after the first session, you were able to utilize the tool. So tell us more about how quickly people do manage to pick it up and make it a regular practice.
So that's a very interesting question, because everybody is different, but I am very good at supporting people in implementing the practice and encouraging this. I mean, at the end of the day, there is a commitment. Yes. The person have to be willing to commit to practicing, because I'm not going to practice for them. But I'm very good at suggesting how to incorporate this in their day-to-day life and to make it as accessible as possible. And usually most people will start to see significant shifts within 5 sessions. Within 5 sessions, you start seeing a better usually. After, it depends perhaps on the issue, how long the issue has been there. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't work for longer, but certainly within the first 5 sessions, people, you see whether it's working for them or not, because you will see an impact there.
Yeah, so we're not talking about months and months before you really know. And so if
somebody, it's a few weeks.
It's a few weeks. And if somebody comes to you to do a session, I'm assuming they do it online, or do they need to see you in person?
Well, I would have said before COVID, come and see me in person. And since COVID, I've discovered that sophrology works very well online.
Right.
So I can deliver the sessions in person, I can deliver online, on Zoom. And actually, for some people who perhaps suffer with chronic pain or chronic fatigue, accessing the session on Zoom if there is a bad day and it's a bad day, because I can adapt
Right.
to
Brilliant.
to the person I work with. So that can be easier for them to access online. So it's really flexible. Again, the way you can do the exercises. When you work with me one-to-one, I'll tend to create, a set of exercises that work especially for you.
Right. Makes sense.
So we'll work together at your pace, and we'll find which exercises you resonate the most with, and I'll completely bespoke the protocol or the set of exercises as we work together. But I also have some courses available, that are like group classes, usually delivered online. And there is one about, teaching sophrology as a toolkit. So it's really bringing these exercises, finding your own toolkit,
Right. Love
so
that.
that you can manage your stress, build your resilience, improve your sleep and energy. I have also a program which is 12 weeks. So this one is 3 months.
Right.
And this one is especially for people with long-term chronic conditions that suffer with persistent pain and fatigue. And because I find as well that through these 3 months of work together, we really build something that is transformative and that becomes very sustainable over time.
That makes sense, because and also it's a commitment to stick with it for those 3 months and give yourself the opportunity to really embed what you're doing, how it fits into your life, and make it a part of, isn't it? So tell me about the type of things that you're finding people coming to you with, because my brain's taking me to long COVID, which is something that I would imagine you come across people coming to you for that. But you mentioned MS.
Yeah.
So what are the type of things that people do ask you, will this help?
Right. So let me just tell you a few examples or a few conditions that people had and I worked with. And I don't think it's by any means exhaustive, but I worked with people who are stressed, have anxiety, depression, phobia, panic attacks. I work with people who also have confidence issues. Perhaps there have been an event that knocks them out, or they need to find where they're going next. And in terms of the long-term conditions I've been working with, I work with people who had MS as well, who have fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, long COVID, arthritis, endometriosis, tinnitus, IBS,
Right.
ankylosing spondylitis, EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS. It's not so much. I work with people with cancer as well.
Right.
It's not so much about the condition. I'm
No.
not going to be
About the person, isn't it?
your magic wand.
No.
It's about changing the relationship
Yeah.
that you have with a condition and tapping again into that mind-body connection, which gives you the power, and you have that in you, to bring the volume up or down on your experience, whether the experience is anxiety, is pain, is fatigue.
Yeah.
You have this power to bring the volume up or down. And what people will find is that something that they felt was so part of their life, taking hold and stealing their life away in some way, they feel back in control. And then they start to feel that they are again partaking in life, and they feel they're empowered and they're enjoying their life to the full because they don't feel limited anymore.
And that's such a powerful thing, I think, for people to hear, because that feeling is, as you say, it becomes all-consuming, doesn't it, when you're in it? And you kind of described that to start with, because your brain is wanting so many answers to so many questions, and you just can't stop thinking about it all the time. And to hear that there is something that you can do for yourself, obviously with the right guidance, that can actually take away all of that and help you to feel so much more in control and more empowered is quite incredible. And that's why I just love what you do and how you do it. And I think maybe I need to get on this course and learn how to do this. So tell us about where people can find you and about the Academy and all of that good stuff.
Right. So people can find me at stepintosophrology.co.uk. So that's my website, and you can see the different things that the different services that I offer. But also, yes, on behalf of the Sophrology Academy, I offer a taster session on the second Tuesday of the month. It's online on Zoom, and it's at 7 p.m. And that would be my best recommendation, that people join the taster session, because I always say sophrology is better experienced than explained. And I always make sure after the taster session to give some guidance on how you can start using the exercises in your everyday life.
Fabulous.
So that's there as an offer, the taster session. And I also offer a free consultation. If people are not too sure and whether I can help them or not, they can book a free consultation with me. We can discuss the issue in total confidence, and I can assess whether or not I could be of service. So that costs absolutely nothing. And it can perhaps make a big difference. So do book a call.
Amazing. And we'll put the link to that, folks, if you're wondering or you don't know how to spell it. We will put the links that you can just click in the show notes and in the description if you're watching on YouTube. So I absolutely love what you do. And I was very fortunate that in that session, you did give us a little bit of a taster. From a time point of view, we don't have the opportunity to do that now, but I highly recommend that people do book on for that taster session if they can, because as you say, it's better to be experienced than to hear it being explained. But what I want to ask you, and I always ask this at the end from my guests, if you could leave our listeners and people watching with just one thing from this episode, what would that be?
Short practices on a regular basis can have big positive impacts in your life.
Boom. Absolutely love that. That is spot on. Yeah, because this is the thing. You might not think or feel it's making a difference to start with, but if you keep on going, the difference, as you are a testament to, is profound, isn't it? Incredible. Thank you so much for joining me, Audrey. It's been my absolute delight. So I hope you do go and check out what is on offer by Audrey, because I think that this is one of those modalities that is like a hidden secret. But I'm hoping that with your help and with Audrey's help and mine, we can get so many more people in the UK to become people who practice this regular commitment to themselves to feel better and to therefore function better and live better. Thank you, Audrey, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicky.
As always, folks, I'm going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So look after it, because it is looking after you. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.